everybody, welcome back to Tavian's World of Reptiles. I hope you are all doing well and taking care of yourselves. If this is your first time to my channel, thank you so much for coming through. Please check out some of my other content. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, ding that bell, and get notified when I post future videos. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for swinging through again and listening to me ramble. Now, we are all in this hobby because we love these animals, and we can lose ourselves easily just kind of taking care of them and admiring everything about them, and not really thinking about much else. But the reality is our community is constantly being scrutinized by people who would rather see us not own these animals. There is a large group of people out there who would rather see us not have these animals in captivity, and there are some who are like so strict that they don't want to see any animals in captivity. That means cats or dogs or any of it. But then there are some who are a little bit more biased and who just wouldn't want to see us keeping reptiles or other exotic animals as pets. So as much as we want to spend our time really enjoying these animals and loving them, I think it's important for us to remember that we are constantly at risk of actually losing our rights to own these animals. And it's kind of our job to go ahead and spread as much knowledge as we can to kind of counterproduct or counteract what these people are kind of putting out. You know, they put out a lot of facts that can be scary to people on the outside and make them vote against us. But the reality is we have a lot of information, we have a lot of facts that we know about these animals from keeping them, and it's our job to get that out there so that people can have that knowledge, not be quickly blinded by people who are putting a lot of hate towards this hobby and doing whatever they can to stop us from keeping these animals. It's kind of why I started my channel. It's kind of why I share my stuff on social media. I do whatever I can to share my knowledge to get as many people on board with understanding what these animals are all about, so that they have less fear about them and are less quick to be pulled to the side where it would shut us down from maybe being able to have these animals. So in today's video, I really want to talk about some of the pros that I think we have when it comes to keeping these animals in captivity, and why I think it's super important for us to continue to do so. And on overall grand scheme, not even necessarily just in the reptile community, but as animals in general, and why I think it's important to keep some, if not all of these certain different animals in captivity. One of the biggest reasons I think we have for keeping these animals in captivity and why it's important that we do it is for conservation. Now, there are many species out there that are on the verge of being extinct or even completely extinct and would not even exist on this planet if it weren't actually for people who have captured them from the wild and brought them in captivity. And so now some species that are not even found anywhere on the planet in the wild can actually still be found in certain zoos or certain people's keeping whatever facilities, and can still be found on the planet and are not completely extinct because people have taken them into captivity. Now, I know that it's not necessary, we all think that these animals should just be, you know, free and all that, but the fact of the matter is we humans are destroying this planet, and these animals are losing their habitat every day. And so if it wasn't for conservation, many of these animals would be completely extinct. There are plenty of animals that have been brought into captivity in multiple different zoo settings, and I know people have a lot of issues with zoos, but a lot of zoos have actually saved species from going completely extinct. You know, they've had a few in their individual collections and they've brought them together to actually breed to continue to have the species thrive in captivity. And some species have actually been, you know, rehabilitated in captivity and then reintroduced into the wild so that they can continue to thrive and repopulate. But unfortunately, there are a lot of species where the habitats have just been destroyed too much that there is nowhere to put them back to. And until we can actually, you know, get the earth back to where it needs to be, if it can even be recovered at this point, then they may never actually be introduced into the wild again. But it doesn't mean that the species themselves are gone. It just means that you have to actually go to certain facilities and be able to actually see these animals, which is pretty sad and it's pretty heartbreaking. But the reality is we are a violent and aggressive species as humans, and we are pretty destructive, and we have wiped out many habitats that just cannot be brought back. And so unfortunately those animals are stuck in captivity, and the only way for them to continue to thrive is in captivity because there's nowhere else to put them out in the wild. So I think though when it comes to conservation, keeping animals in captivity is super super important. And even though we keep animals that are not quite extinct yet, the fact of the matter is we are wiping out habitats daily, and so some of these animals that may not be extinct or even close to extinct are eventually going to get there. And at least we're kind of ahead of the game when it comes to that. And I guess it's kind of like jumping the gun and preemptive striking that extinct situation. So now, even if their habitats get wiped out, many of them will still thrive, like in captivity. Axolotls are probably one of my favorite examples of that. There are very, very few, if any, left in the wild, but let me tell you, they are thriving in captivity. So the fact of the matter is, captive keeping can be super important in conserving the various different species that we as humans are actually wiping out all over the world. Another thing that I think is super important to remember is that these animals that are being kept in captivity are actually being given better lives than they would actually have out in the wild. I know that in the wild they would be more. It'd be better for them to be in the wild. I understand that, and it's 100% valid. But the fact of the matter is, most of these animals, specifically things like snakes that might only live up to about 15 or so, 10 or 15 years, we've actually managed to get them to living up to 25, 30 years in captivity. So while it may not be the most ideal situation for these animals to not actually just thrive out in the wild, the fact of the matter is, when we bring them into captivity, we are providing them with a lot more sense of safety and medical attention, regular food access, and all those good things that they're not getting in the wild, which means that they actually get to have an extended life when they're being kept in captivity, which for me, I think is a pro. Whether people really want to see that as a pro or not, the fact of the matter is, when they're in our care, they live longer. And last but not least, one of the biggest things I think is super important is the fact that there are so many people that are interested in understanding what it is to keep these animals. I think it encourages a lot more research to be done for these animals. And I think if we get more people who are interested in the hobby, it kind of encourages more people to do more research on these animals in the wild and their behaviors and what they need. And it just kind of gets more people out there and studying them. And if we can get more people involved with studying them, we get more people involved with with getting into conservation and to actually saving these species and to making sure that their habitats are actually stabilized and safe and protected. And the more we get people exposed to these animals and oh wow, there's a huge calling of people who are all about loving on snakes and lizards, and well, I guess we should get more scientists out there studying these creatures and the natural behaviors. And of course, once we get more people out there studying them, we get more people drawn to caring about them, we get more people caring about their habitat, we get more habitats saved. So it is important for us to have this passion and have this hobby because it keeps people interested in wanting to do better for these animals in the wild, as well as keeping them in captivity. It just really sparks some research that wouldn't otherwise be done if people just didn't have an interest in these animals for keeping purposes or whatever else. So anyway, I'm not going to keep going. Those are three very important reasons I think that keeping animals in captivity is a very valid and important thing to do. I know that there are a lot of arguments against it. These are my reasons why I think it's important for us. I think why, if you are a snake keeper or a reptile keeper of any sort, it's important for you to do your part to spread as much knowledge as you can, because people who want to see us lose our rights to take care of these animals are spreading a lot of knowledge that is more just fear mongering, and people are buying into it because there's no other information that is countering that. And so it's up to us to counter that information with positive, legit keeping information and our experiences with these animals to help counteract, like I said, what they're putting out there. So I'm not going to keep rambling like I always do. I'm going to wrap this video up. I hope you guys like it. If you have more to say about this, please put it in the comments. Like I said, I'm all about spreading that knowledge, all about spreading that information. So if you have more information and your thoughts on this and why you think this is important and why you think that we should continue to keep these animals in captivity and what it does for this hobby and for these animals, please put it in the comments if I haven't already mentioned it in this video. You all rock. Thank you so much for coming through. I appreciate you all. You take care. Love yourselves. Love your reptiles. Love your loved ones. And you guys keep spreading those herbs.